There are serious choices that lie ahead of you when you decide you want to be loved. Let's go over a few of them. One option is to stay and be unloved. People who do this often feel like, I can't blow things up. I know I'm not going to be loved. I accept that. If you choose this path, my encouragement is to stop. If you're trying to change your spouse, one of the most important things you can do is ask for sex. Unfortunately, most couples still use the caveman approach. I'll rub your back, scratch you, hold you, or fondle you. If you don't respond, I'll go sleep on the sofa. In order to maintain a healthy sexuality, we must be able to ask for what we want. When it comes to intimate relationships, I've noticed that people can be quite timid when it comes to asking for what they want. Music, greetings, devoted believers, picture yourself separated from the person you intend to spend the rest of your life with. Everything you've created together, from habits to memories to aspirations for the future. Joni Lamb's life took a sudden turn this morning at 4 a.m. when her husband Marcus Lamb passed away. Joni wasn't just any old person. She and Marcus were a Christian power couple who co-founded Daystar. I am the president and founder of Daystar, and my soulmate went to be with Jesus. Everyone who followed Marcus's ministry, including Joni, expected her to grieve and recover after his death because the television network was a huge platform that reached millions of people worldwide with Christian content. The couple's work had a profound impact on many lives, and they served as a strong example of faith, family, and leadership. In the midst of processing everything that comes with losing a spouse, a life-altering event, Joni began to develop feelings for someone new. This someone turned out to be Dr. Doug Weiss, a famous Christian marriage counselor who has written books, spoken at conferences, and assisted couples in working through difficult issues. He's the go-to guy for couples whose marriages are on the brink of collapse. So when word got out that Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss were getting married, it shocked people. Some were happy for them, but others were confused and even upset about how the wedding could have happened so quickly. Was it genuine love, or was there something else happening behind the scenes, possibly even Joni's own? The Lamb family had strong feelings about it, and things became complicated when Jonathan Lamb spoke out. Let's take a step back and explain all the players in this story, so you can get a full picture. First, there's Joni Lamb, who has been in the spotlight for years after Marcus's death. She is a television host, ministry leader, and a woman who was seen as a symbol of resilience and someone who would continue their work at Daystar. People anticipated that she would publicly mourn and perhaps even slow things down. However, her life took an unexpected turn when she met Doug Weiss, a Christian therapist, speaker, and author. Doug made a name for himself by assisting others in their marital struggles. But there was a twist. His own marriage to Lisa Weiss lasted for more than 30 years. Doug's relationship with Joni Lamb began shortly after his divorce, which led many to wonder if the couple had given themselves enough time apart. This timing is in line with what the Bible says in Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1, which states, "To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven." Jonathan Lamb, Joni's son, had a privileged upbringing in the ministry, working at Daystar, appearing on television, and being deeply involved in the family's mission. However, after his mom married Doug, Jonathan began to wonder if it had been rushed and if Doug had really honored the covenant. Was his mother being guided by love or by her emotions and confusion after losing his first wife? Jonathan wasn't the only one who felt uneasy about how fast things were moving. His wife Susie Lamb shared his concerns. They both believed that, particularly in a Christian context, one needs time for reflection and healing before moving on after a long marriage. The Bible reminds, we are reminded in Proverbs 4 verse 7, "Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding." Jonathan and Susie prayed for insight and understanding, not only for themselves, but also for Doug, Joni, and anyone else keeping tabs on the situation. Lisa Weiss, Doug's ex-wife, has not been involved in the not nearly as much attention, but that hasn't stopped people from wondering about her perspective after more than 30 years of marriage. Was she caught off guard? Did she anticipate her husband to defend their relationship? Did she feel replaced by what little her husband shared? Some think Lisa was emotionally abandoned long before the divorce papers were signed, even though their marriage was Christian. For the Lord God of Israel says that he hates divorce, for it covers one's garment with violence. This verse reminds us that divorce isn't just a legal act. It causes pain, grief, and emotional wounds when someone who condemned divorce ended their own marriage abruptly and summarized it all, leaving us with many unanswered questions. Some think that Joni and Doug discovered love while they were grieving, that God brought them together to help each other heal, and that maybe this is a second chance for them. Others, particularly those who place a high value on biblical teachings, find this situation troubling. Regarding marriage and the importance of waiting on God's timing, they have genuine concerns. They question whether their relationship was driven more by emotions, grief, or ambition than by prayer and wisdom. Additionally, the situation has a profound impact on Dyer, as the network represents faith, family, and biblical values. As a result, people look up to Joni and Doug as Christian leaders. According to Proverbs 3 verses 5 to 6, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean on him when times get tough." This story is about trust, timing grief, and walking in faith, not just about marriage or remarriage, but about everything that is personal and controversial. Rather than relying on our own understanding or the opinions of others, we should recognize God as the ultimate source of guidance in all our ways. This verse holds great significance in this context, as it reminds us that when emotions run high and the world is watching, we should lean on God. Based on your thoughts, was this a love story that emerged from pain, or was it? Here's a thought to ponder. Before passing judgment on anyone's story, let us keep in mind Jesus' words in John 8 verse 7. "He who is without sin among you, let him throw the first stone." Let us lead with compassion, because relationships are complicated, grief is real, and healing takes time. Additionally, remain rooted in reality. We've witnessed individuals crippled by infidelity, sexual addiction, or intimacy anorexia, and I've wondered if something is amiss. So, we conducted some substantial research. These women filled out 2-hour surveys both before and after the trauma, and their responses taught us a great deal about what happens to them physically, emotionally, and in their relationships is absolutely captivating. Now you might be thinking, but men don't always have to have women if they're unfaithful. Well, that's not the case anymore. In November 2021, Joni Lem endured one of the most difficult times anyone can go through with her husband, Marcus Lamb. Marcus and Joni were widely recognized as a devout couple who loved God, each other, and set a good example for their millions of followers. When Marcus passed away, many assumed that Joni would continue to lead Dyer Television Network, one of the largest Christian broadcasting platforms globally. Pause for a bit, maybe take a break, concentrate on her family, and allow herself to process the immense loss. However, in January 2022, a few months after Marcus's passing, something unexpected began to happen. Dr. Doug Weiss, a famous Christian marriage counselor who had helped countless couples for years, filed for divorce from his wife Lisa. He had written books, spoken at conferences, and helped people through some of their worst moments, fighting for their marriages, working through betrayals, and healing broken relationships. So when Doug, of all people, filed for divorce, people were shocked and started asking tough questions, like, was his marriage already falling apart, or was something else involved? Then came there were rumblings about Doug and Joni's apparent connection. Some claimed they had been talking before Doug's divorce was final, while others said Joni had been in touch with him during his separation. This got people talking, and the question was raised, could their relationship have started before Doug was actually single? Or was there more going on behind closed doors? This happened just 2 months after Joni's husband passed away, and the same month that Doug filed for divorce. The timing of the announcements made many people uncomfortable, but things moved even faster after that. In March 2023, just over a year after the divorce, Joni and Doug announced their engagement. For some, it was a beautiful surprise, proof that love can blossom even in the midst of difficult times. Ashes of grief, but for many others it raised questions. Was it too soon after Marcus' death? Had Doug really done all he could to salvage his first marriage? How was Lisa, his ex-wife, feeling about it all? Even Joni's own family began to feel uneasy. Her son Jonathan Lamb and his wife Susie weren't merely onlookers. They were active members of the ministry their whole lives. Pastor Jimmy Evans, another esteemed Christian leader, officiated the wedding of Joni and Doug on June 10, 2023. Instead of calming things down, the ceremony escalated the whispers into full-blown conversations, with everyone having something to say. Some people clapped and shouted, "Joni!" But the couple continued building their relationship. Deserves happiness again. But others were deeply concerned. Is this happening too fast? They wondered. Is she really ready for this? Did Doug truly handle things the right way? At that point, the story took a more personal turn, as doubts about Joni's situation began to arise from within, rather than just from the public. In a private conversation, Jonathan Lamb confronted Doug with the questions that many were wondering. Why did you divorce your wife so quickly? Did you really try everything to fix the marriage before giving up? How could someone who teaches others how to save their marriages walk away from his own so quickly? The Lamb family was having a hard time too. According to those close to the situation, that must have been a very intense conversation. Doug didn't handle it well, becoming emotional and even defensive. He claimed to have tried everything, praying, working hard, and giving his marriage his all, but it had already broken down, and he felt helpless. Jonathan and Susie weren't entirely convinced. They suspected that Doug was withholding information or was not being completely honest. Their fears for Joni, was she hastily entering a new relationship due to loneliness or grief, came to a head when they realized that this wasn't merely a love story. It was also a test of trust, timing, and faith, and not merely a family issue. This discussion has veered off course and is now centered on the role of Christian leaders and the example they should set. With that said, let us pause and consider whether Christian leaders should be subject to a higher standard in their relationships. In James 3:1, the Bible states, "Not many of you should become teachers, my fellow believers, because you know that we who teach will be judged." Sterner. This verse hits close to home in this story because Doug wasn't your average divorcee. He spent years advising couples on how to fight for their marriages. As a result, people expected him to do more than just talk about his healing process. They expected him to be honest and open about his struggles and to put his beliefs into practice. We don't know what transpired behind the scenes, but maybe Joni and Doug were a Christian couple making quick decisions during a vulnerable time. As a leader on a Christian network, Joni was respected and looked up to, which is why this story touched a nerve for many. The questions that remain are whether there was enough time for healing, whether Doug did everything he could to save his first marriage, and whether Joni was truly prepared for this type of commitment. It is believed that God brought them together, and maybe they found comfort in each other's company during a painful season. The Lamb family is currently dealing with more than just loss. They are also dealing with confusion, division, and doubt during what should have been a time of unity. This reminds us of the dangers of making big decisions too quickly, especially when those decisions affect our families, ministries, and witness to others. It's mind-boggling how much I'm attached to Lisa's big green eyes after years of having sex. When we maintain eye contact during sex, I feel like I'm going home tonight. The storm of controversy and pain has turned mourning, healing, and unity into a tempest. It's not just about two people falling in love. When Joni Lamb, a prominent Christian leader, and Dr. Doug Weiss, a popular Christian counselor, announced their marriage, it paved the way for a much bigger public conversation about how a private decision can lead to an unexpected public conversation. Let's pause for a moment and recall where this whole thing began. Joni Lamb was no ordinary Christian. For decades, she and her late husband Marcus Lamb co-led Daystar television network, a massive platform that spread Christian teachings. Now, let's delve into what people had to say about faith, timing, and what it means to lead in the Christian world. Worldwide, their marriage was admired for its godliness and the power it brought to their faith. So, when Marcus passed away in November 2021, it was a devastating blow to Joni. Everyone expected her to grieve and process the loss of the man she had loved and worked with for so many years. However, just 2 months after Marcus's passing, things took an unexpected turn. Many were surprised by Doug Weiss's decision to file for divorce from his wife Lisa. Doug wasn't your average guy going through a bad patch in a marriage. He had made a name for himself counseling couples, writing books about marriage, and encouraging people to fight for their union. Many wondered, did he even? Was this a sudden change, or had it been building up? And then, there was the connection between Doug and Joni. People began to notice that they were communicating, maybe even getting close, as Doug's marriage was ending. Joni denied that anything romantic started before the divorce, but some documents indicated otherwise. Even though nothing out of the ordinary occurred, many people found the timing suspicious and wondered things like, were they emotionally involved before Doug was officially divorced? Was Joni moving too fast after losing Marcus? Were they genuinely seeking God's timing, or just reacting out of emotion and loneliness? This wasn't gossip. It hit close to home. The news of their engagement spread in early 2023, and things really heated up when Joni and Doug got married on June 10, 2023. Pastor Jimmy Evans, a respected name in Christian circles, officiated the ceremony. These leaders were idolized by others. In the Christian world, leadership isn't just about talent, it's about character, integrity, and accountability. By itself gave their relationship a certain level of legitimacy in the eyes of many. Many people rallied behind the couple, saying things like, Joan has every right to find love again. Doug deserves a second chance. They've prayed, gotten counsel, and followed God's lead. However, not everyone was in agreement. A notable portion of the Christian community, including viewers, pastors, and even close family, weren't. Justin Lamb, who is Joni's son, and his wife Susie were very concerned about how things were handled. Jonathan was particularly outspoken in his criticism of Doug, who he confronted with difficult questions like, why didn't you fight harder for your first marriage as someone who counsels others? How did you give up so quickly? An example of this is how Jonathan stood firm for Doug when he felt emotionally cornered. Doug had tried everything, praying, counseling, and making every effort to save his marriage, but it was irreparably damaged. Doug hated having his family question him, but Jonathan wasn't trying to be controlling. He was just trying to protect his family's legacy. This is when the conversation shifted from superficial topics like love and marriage to more weighty ones like Christian leadership and the validity of divorce as a profession. In 1 Timothy 3 verse 2, the Bible makes it clear that leaders are to be accountable for their actions, saying, now the overseer must be above reproach faithful to his. A Christian leader's actions matter, particularly when it comes to personal decisions, because people are watching and learning from them. When leaders move quickly or appear inconsistent, it can cause real harm to some. That doesn't mean Christian leaders have to be perfect, but it does mean they should be respectable, courteous, hospitable, and able to teach. It was pointed out by Christians that Romans 12 verse 2 states, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." In their view, moving on so swiftly after a spouse's death or divorce resembled the worldly pattern rather than the patience and healing that God calls us to. Additionally, the issue of trust must be remembered, as Daystar wasn't just a TV show. Network, a haven for millions of people, was founded by Joni and Marcus on firm Christian principles. When Joni's second marriage caused a storm, many of her supporters felt confused and even betrayed, wondering if the ministry was still committed to the principles they had been taught. To be fair, Joni has spoken out about all of this. She said they sought God's guidance, prayed, and received counsel from other sources because ministry is more than a job. It's a calling. When your life is integrated into that calling, your personal choices impact more than just you, your team, your family, and even your viewers and followers. Despite her denials, the public's opinion remained divided. On one hand, some praised the situation, saying, "This is love, it's a second chance God can bring beauty from ashes." On the other hand, others felt that the situation was rushed, confusing, and sent the wrong message about what Christian leadership should look like. Additionally, she was caught in the middle of. Regardless of this, there is an undeniable truth. Christian leaders are still human. They experience pain, grief, and make mistakes. The burden of responsibility is heavier on them because their choices impact countless others. What happens next is anyone's guess. Maybe this story isn't going to end as expected. Maybe it's time for everyone to take a step back and reflect on their own lives. What does it mean to grieve in a healthy way? How can we find a balance between love, truth, and timing? In Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1, we are reminded that everything has its time and place. Some people think that Joni and Doug's story aligns with this message. Is this a story of God's redemption or a cautionary tale? Some say the new season came too soon after the old one had truly ended, while others say God brought them together in it. Either way, this story makes us think about love, leadership, second chances, and the power our choices have to either strengthen or weaken the people we lead. What do you think? It's evident that this story had an impact beyond the individuals involved. It prompted us to reevaluate our ideas about faith, trust, and leadership with integrity. Thank you for joining us, and please like, subscribe, and enable notifications so you don't miss a thing.